We're moving right along with our sport dory build here, and the next thing for us to do really on the dory itself is to get involved with the seat risers. But before I do that, I wanted to mention to you that I finally got a Tips from a Shipwright hat. Now, I've got my own hat, and it's made me incredibly happy. It's navy blue with white lettering, and we've got white hats with navy blue lettering now. They're sold on our website along with our t-shirts, and I'd love to have you go there and order up because it would help us out a lot, and you know, I just think it'd be a great way to help support us, and you could actually call yourself sponsors. So, you know, if that interests you at all, go there and order up like I said, and the next week we're going to do this, we're going to post a video about these seat risers, but after that we're going to do a question and answer video. So I'd love you to send in all the questions that you have, and we're going to do the best we can do to answer them. So that'll be our schedule of videos, and what we're going to do now is get involved with these seat risers. Now, like I said to you, they're a little complex. They don't seem so complex, but you know, I kept looking in the Dory book and looking in the Dory book by John Gardner, and there's quite a bit of information really in there if you study the book carefully. A lot of dories like this had a broader seat riser in it, maybe 2.5 inches by 1/2 inch thick. I didn't really like that too much because I thought that it would be kind of tricky to fasten the seats down to the seat riser, so I wasn't interested in that. I wanted them to be oak rather than pine, and because they hold the fastening a little bit better. And I had cut some pieces out 1.5 inches wide or so by 1 inch thick and planed them out and tried to bend them in there. Very, very difficult to do because they require quite a twist, and I would have had to steam them and do all kinds of different things in order to get them to fit in there properly. So I finally figured it out, and it was to cut a bevel on the back side of it. So what I've done is cut quite a bevel on the back side of it, like 15 degrees, and then what happens is you just put them in there, and all you really have to do is bend them in place. You don't have to edge set them, you don't have to twist them, you don't have to do anything like that. They actually go in pretty easily. Look at that, just a push with my hand and they're right down flat. So it's going to work out really nicely. They're fastened to the plastic frames with just 1.25 inch bronze screws by number 12, 1.25 inch 12. The plastic holds the screws really, really well. So I'm just going to back out these few screws that hold the portside seat riser in place and take it over to the bench and give you a real good look at it. Now here is your portside seat riser right here. I've sawn these out of 2x stock white oak quartered. Very nice material. It was quite bent when I first sawed it, so it had burn marks in it, and I've run it through the planer. But this is the way it orients into the boat, like this, with this side against the framing right here, and the top would be slightly slanted just like this, and the seat would sit right on top of it. Now this system right here of cutting this bevel on one side really alleviates a lot of work. If you try to do it another way, like spile the seat risers in, you'd either need a broad piece, you know, or you could twist it and bend it and all kinds of different things, but this system really works really well for me. I like the idea that the top is on a little bit of a slant, because what I'm going to do is cut a little slot in the seat so that it butts into the inside of the seat riser, and it's going to make it nice and strong. Let me just give you a little demonstration about these seat risers. Now, this is just a straight piece of aluminum right here. It's an aluminum rule, like 6 feet long, but I'm going to push it up against the plastic framing like this. This is approximately where the seat riser sits, like this. And you can see that the end of it is risen way, way up on the two ends. In order for me to cut a very broad seat riser, say 2.5 inches wide, I'd have to actually spile it because there'd be no edge setting it in place. Edge setting it would be like trying to force the ends down this way or the other end down this way. So that wouldn't work for us. And in order to put them in nice and flat, or just to cut the pieces, say 1.5 inches by 7/8, they still rise up quite a ways, and I would have had to bend the ends way down like that. So that wasn't going to work for me either. So what I did was I cut a 15-degree bevel on the back side of it, and what that does is it puts it like this, and you can see as I tip it, the edge of it, or the ends of it, actually go downhill like that. That's exactly what I wanted, like that right there. So they're going to be approximately that height, and they follow the lines that I want them to follow. They bear right up against the framing without doing any twisting or any edge setting or anything like that. And I just think that that was the answer to all the problems that the seat risers can give you. Well, here is our starboard side seat riser in position and fastened down. And I just wanted to talk to you about these seat risers quite a bit because, you know, this was one of the things that was really kind of bothering me about the whole boat was the position of the seat risers and the position of the seats, really. You know, I did quite a bit of research by looking in John Gardner's Dory book, and it's pretty comprehensive, really, but it's not a lot of information about the seat risers. You just kind of have to steal it out of the plans a little bit, but I kind of came up with the heights of the seat risers, you know, off of some other plans, and I don't know, I wasn't too happy about it. It seemed to me like the seats were too high, you know, just way too high. I know if the seats are lower in the boat, that the boat's going to be more stable. So I kind of wanted them to be lower, but then I was kind of concerned about whether or not when you row, whether you fall over backwards, because it's not like a rowing scull where I'm going to have my feet installed and a pair of shoes in there to stop me from falling over backwards. You know, you want to be totally mobile in the boat because there's all kinds of different things you might want to do, especially when you're fishing and all kinds of things. So, you know, if you have your seat too low, it becomes very uncomfortable very quickly. So I kind of got off of that and decided that I would place the seat in position and try it a little bit. And one of the concerns was whether or not rowing, my knees would get in the way. So then I kind of figured out that, well, your knees aren't in any more of the way, no matter what height the seat is, no matter whether I raise the seat up or lower it down, my knees still weren't in the way. So I kind of arrived at this. This is just a tiny bit lower than you see them in a lot of dories, but not by much. And of course the rowlocks are going to be raised up on pads. So I think this is it right here. It's 7 inches down from the top of the gunnel right now, or the gunnel, the gunnel plank, down to the top of the seat riser. So we've done that, you know, over a course of about 4 frames here, and then it gets a little bit higher. They're not in the boat level. They don't follow the bottom, and they don't follow the shear in particular, just in the center right here. So I think this is the proper position right here. The other thing that you have to consider is where do you put the seat on the seat riser? You know, I mean, you know, if you're going to be rowing it alone, it would seem to me that the seat or the weight of yourself in the boat should be a midships, you know, on the length of the bottom. So I think that's probably true. That way it gives you approximately the same windage forwards and aft that you would have, so that you don't have a windage problem with your bow way up in the air or your stern way up in the air. So I put the seat, or I'm going to put the seat, basically just a tiny bit ahead of a midships, and your rowlocks will be just aft of a midships. So I think that'll work out fine. We can always move the seats if we wanted to. The other thing you have to consider in a boat like this is when you take it out by yourself, do you have a little bit of cargo with you? So depends on how you want it to be. You know, which way the wind is coming from and what you would like it to do, because, you know, you have in a boat like this adjustable windage and adjustable lateral resistance. Now, you know, if you were rowing it into the surf and the wind was coming in the same direction that the surf was coming, you'd want the bow down just a little bit and the stern up, because you lose your lateral resistance back aft and you gain windage. That would keep the bow towards the weather. So in all different situations, you have a little bit, you know, different thing to cope with. But you have to arrive at something, and this is what we've arrived at right here. The seat's going to be right here, and all we have to do now is install our next seat riser, and then we're going to put a seat on it and see what it looks like. Now I'm installing the portside seat riser again, and I'm going to put the screws in the same exact holes I had them in before, because I had already measured down from the shear plank down to the top of the seat riser on the starboard side of midships and got that fastened. So I'm going to fasten it back in the same spot, and then considering that I've got the starboard side fastened in from bow all the way to the stern, I'm going to steal measurements off of it, because I put it in there, the starboard side, pleasing to my eye, really, more so than anything. It's very close to following the shear, but not quite. Yeah. So I'm going to take some measurements off of it and transfer them over to the port side, and I'll just clamp it in place with these grip clamps, because I don't really need to draw a line or do anything like that. I'm just going to stabilize it with the clamp, and then I'll just drill a hole and install the screw and move along one at a time, and all of a sudden I'll be done. You'll also notice that I've got some pads on each end of the seat riser here. Now, I just don't want the ends of the seat risers to cut in or dig into the planking on either end. When you're bending them in, it's not that bad, but if you release them, what happens is they dig into the planking. So I've padded the ends just on a temporary basis until I get them fastened in completely. Then I'm able to remove the pad. Now, I like the seat risers like this because I love to be able to put the seats just about anywhere I want. I like them to be continuous. I don't want them to be in little short pieces, you know, under each individual seat. And the answer to it was run them full length like this. And I think it strengthens the boat up a little bit too. So there we go. Once the seat risers are both installed, I'm going to measure out 4 inches from the last frame forward and the last frame aft. And I'm going to nip them off at 90 degrees. You know, I'm going to use a little tiny skill saw and do it because I think that's the easiest thing to do. And I think the 4 inches makes it look just about right because it's pleasing to my eye, and you can tie a line around the end of it still. So, you know, it's going to be useful as well as good looking. Now here's the first seat that we've cut. This is the seat that's going to midships. This is the seat that we're going to first row the boat from right here, and it's cut from 1 1/8 quarter sawn white cedar, so it should be stiff enough. I know that most seats are spruce or something else, but we had white cedar, so that's what we used, and I think it's perfect. We're going to set it down here, and I'm going to show you a little something about the end of it here. Now you're looking at the starboard bottom end of the seat right here. I've cut the seat to fit. I put a straight edge across the boat and then took this bevel right here and cut that to match. I've also scribed it to match this bevel right here. But I've also cut this little chamfer in it right here, or this little relief in it right here. And the purpose for that is so that the seat would actually bump into the seat riser right here and prevent the boat from crushing. It keeps the boat spread. You know, the fasteners just hold the seat down, and the seat itself, butted into the seat riser, keeps it spread, like I said. It's much stronger that way. Now we're going to take it over to the boat and fasten it into position. We're going to place it into position and see how it fits. Fits pretty good. I like that. It's nice and stiff. So, you know, I know that this is going to work out really, really well. I can tell already. But the next thing for me to do is walk around the other side and climb in and pretend we're rowing. I can't wait to sit on it. I know it's going to be stiff enough. And I'm going to go around to the other side here and climb in. Now, you got to be careful that you climb right and step right in the bottom of the boat and climb over the seat. Now, this is getting exciting right now because I know that not long from now, I'll be rowing this boat in some surf. So this is really going to be fun. Now, Caleb's going to hand me an oar, and I just wanted to show you a few things. I've got a block of wood clamped to the frame in here. That represents really the height of the row locks. They're even going to be higher than that because the oar locks will even lift it up somewhere in there. So the thing with it is here is I want to make sure that I have enough room to clear my knees with the oars. So it looks pretty good to me, actually. The row locks will be about 1 foot aft of the after face of the seat, somewhere right in there. So, you know, when I dip in, I'm going to be able to be up in like this and lean back, and it feels right to me. It clears my knees, and the oars are up high enough in the sky there to clear the waves. So this is really going to be something else right here. I think this is right. I think it's going to work out right, and I think I'm going to be having as much fun as anybody when we go to row this boat. So let me climb out and keep working. We're getting involved with installing the breast hook at this point, and the first thing I wanted to tell you is cut out of an oak tree, you know, a nice 60-degree fork in an oak tree. So it's quarter sawn grain. Look at it, nice annual rings right straight across it. It's a perfect piece of wood for it. You know, I found it in the shop here. I didn't even know I had it. I was trying to use a few other pieces and they weren't working out, and I finally came by this one. This one's just going to work out fine. I centered the grain up, so once I cut the sapwood away and everything, the grain's going to center right up in the middle of it, and I think it's really going to look good. So I wanted to show you a few things about how I went about marking it. I've already got it marked out, and obviously I fit it in place. you can see how I fit it in place just by watching the skiff videos, because on the skiff videos I've done exactly the same thing really. You know, I either just tipped it upside down and traced it out and then cut it and fit it a little bit until it dropped in there kind of nice, and so it's already been fit. And I've actually came up with finally how I want to put the inwhales into it and everything. This is a block of wood right here that I put in there, and I'm going to clamp and glue it against the planking that represents the thickness of the framing back here. And then the inwhale is going to slide in this slot right here. And then actually the breast hook is going to overlap the inwhale, so you're not going to be able to see this corner, and then the caps are going to go right over the whole thing. So, you know, it's kind of worked out finally. It took me a while to figure out how I wanted to do it, because there's about 1,000 different ways of going about it. I mean, I looked at every dory in the world, and every one of them's different, and I figured, well, I don't know, you know, I could be just like this guy or just like that guy, and that'd be all right too, but, you know, there was things I didn't like about the different ways, and I came up with this, so this is the way we're going to go about it. And I wanted to show you that the first thing I did was I made a parallel line right here, parallel to the outside of the planking, like so, and I did the same thing on the other side. Then I took my tips from a Shipwright cup, and I put it on a little mark that I made right here that's 5/8 of an inch back from that corner, and then lined it up with that parallel line like that, and just traced around it like so, and that got that curvature. And I did the same thing on the other side. And then what I did was I made another parallel line over in this area, right over here, right about there. I've erased the parallel line so I don't have it at this point, but I made a parallel line right here, one on the other side, and then I took a TotalBoat primer can and I placed it on that parallel line and on the one on the other side, and traced around the front of it, so I got that radius. So between TotalBoat and tips from a Shipwright, I got the whole thing accomplished, and I've marked it on the breast hook right now, and we're just about to cut it out. So I'm going to remove the breast hook now, and this is pretty convenient because I've got these 2 blocks of wood clamped in there, so I can just reach under the breast hook. I don't have any clamps on the breast hook, anything holding it in place. I can just reach under it and tap it and pull it right up out of there. Now I'm going to go to the bandsaw and cut it. All right, check this out. We got the breast hook cut to shape at this point, and we had it fit in place before, so it should go in exactly the same way, just like that. Now, like I said, we have these pieces of wood right here that are going to hold it in place and take up the same depth, really, or thickness as the framing. So that keeps the top, the cap, and the inwhale all parallel up here. So that's the way we did it. Now, I'm going to glue these pieces in because I want them to stay right there, and I don't want to have to screw them and fasten them and all those things. And then once I get them glued in, I'm just going to pop the breast hook out there like that and clean up around these and let them dry. Once that's happened, tomorrow I'll be able to put the breast hook back down in there and bed it in, or decide to glue it in or whatever else, and I'm going to round the top of it a little tiny bit and just prepare myself for putting the inwhales and the guards on it. So let's pop it out of there and drop it in one more time, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pieces out one at a time and put some glue on them and clamp them in. So here's the first one. I'm going to spread a little glue on the outside of it here. All right, we've got our 2 pieces glued in place, and I'm just going to move the breast hook around a little bit with a hammer, and I'm going to tap these pieces in place a little bit tighter up against the breast hook. You just need a little bit of moving around like that, just like that. I'm going to check this one out over here. Yeah, look at that. Now that's just the way I want them, just like that. So once I've got those in place and I've got the clamps tightened up, make sure I get that one tightened, I'm able to remove the breast hook. I'm going to clean the glue up around these two blocks that I put in there. And like I said, these are just spacer blocks. I'm going to remove the breast hook, clean up around it, and I'll be all ready to put the breast hook back in place and fasten it in place. Then I'll put the guards on it, and then I'll move on to putting the inwhales in it. So that's what we're up to, and I just want to remind you that next week is going to be a question and answer video, as well as probably some work. So send in a few questions, and we'll see what we can do to get them answered.